If this next story that I'm about to tell you is true, this woman and her family should win the largest settlement in world history. Meet Miss Betterstein Wade. Miss Betterstein Wade's son went missing, and he was missing for 7 months. But what makes this story the craziest story ever is that the police knew where her son was the entire 7 months, because they were the ones who were responsible for his death. And not only were they responsible for his death, they buried his body and never told her about it. Now, this story happened over a week ago, and yeah, I'm late to the party, but I definitely wanted to cover it because this is a story that everyone should know about. This story took place in Jackson, Mississippi. Dexter Wade is Mrs. Wade's son. He's 37 years old, and he went missing on the night of March 5th. Now, Miss Wade reported him missing, and the police told her they weren't able to find him. Yet it wasn't until 172 days later that Miss Betterstein found out that her son had died less than an hour after leaving home, after being struck by a Jackson Police Department off-duty officer as he was crossing the highway. And the whole while, they knew who Dexter was and they knew who his mother was, but they failed to contact them in any way. Because you see, this story's got a twist that we're going to talk about. See, Miss Betterstein was already leery about calling the police to even look for her son because something had happened earlier, back in 2019. See, back in 2019, Miss Betterstein's brother died after being slammed to the ground by a Jackson police officer. Now, that officer was convicted of manslaughter, even though he's appealing. Miss Betterstein's family, they filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Jackson Police Department for excessive force and attempting to cover that story up. And of course, the city denied the claims and is going through court. Now you flash to 2023. Her son is crossing the highway and is struck by a Jackson Police Department SUV. He's off duty at the time, and it was a corporal that struck him in the southbound lanes. The corporal alerted the police. He wasn't injured, and he was not suspected to be under the influence of alcohol or drugs, even though he was not given a field sobriety test, even after there's a dead body on the ground that he hit with his car. Nor was he cited for any traffic violations. And the death was ruled totally accidental. Now, Mr. Dexter, he had severe injuries, and he also had severe head injuries. But of course, they did a toxicology report on him now. And in his toxicology report, it said that he had PCP and methamphetamine in his system. Now, on the night Mr. Dexter was hit, the Hinds County Coroner Office responded to the scene. They did not find his identification, but on him, they found a bottle of prescription medications in his pocket with his name on it. And 3 days later, an investigator contacted the medical facility that had provided the prescription, and they got Mr. Dexter's name, and they got his next of kin, which was his mother's name. And they said they called Miss Dexter and left her a message, and that was it. Now, Miss Betterstein said, yeah, that's my number, but you lied about that leaving me a message. And I never received one. And she actually tried to go to Boost Mobile to get her phone records, but they couldn't provide them to prove that they hadn't left any message on her phone. Now, this is where police start playing games and passing the buck. Now, this investigator claims, yeah, I got his information and I passed it along to the police department because it's their job to do the death notification. That investigator said he turned over phone numbers, names, and addresses to the police department so that they could notify Miss Betterstein that her son was dead. Even though they already know who Miss Betterstein is because, of course, they being sued by the woman. And all the while, Miss Betterstein is constantly calling the police department trying to get information about her son. So they claim they're searching for her, they have her number, they have her address, but this woman is calling you almost every day trying to find out, and you don't know who she is? Now, keep in mind, 3 days after this young man was hit and killed, they already knew his name and knew who he was. And this was on March 8th, they knew that information. Now we're at March 15th. This is a day after she actually went and made an official request to have him searched for. The police said there was no kin located, and they couldn't find out who he was, but they knew who he was on March 8th. March 30th, she made another call to them. They said they didn't know nothing about him. And then the following day, the coroner's office asked Hinds County Board of Supervisors for the approval to put his remains in a pauper's field in Hinds County Penal Farm. And for what I've learned, that is just a place where they put like John Does until they can figure out who they are. They'll bury them in this area and assign them a number. But the problem is they did know who he was. All through July, Miss Betterstein still calling looking for her son, and they telling her they got no news about where her son is. The whole while, they know exactly who her son is. On August 13th, they said a new person was going to be taking over the case, and that's who she'd have to stay in contact with. And in less than 2 weeks after the new investigator takes over, that's when they finally call, August 24th, to tell Miss Bernstein that they know where her son is and that they found his body. So Miss Bernstein went a step further. She contacted the original investigator, Mr. Elliott, and he told her that he knew since the day he died and passed away who he was, and the police knew who he was and knew who she was and knew where she was and how to contact her. And he did not understand why it had not happened. And that entire time, her son was buried in this cold field for 7 months. And the police knew about it the entire time. What happened to Miss Betterstein? It wasn't an accident. And there's probably a zillion other crimes that have been covered up this exact same way. And it just goes to show that even the people that we pay our tax dollars to that are supposed to serve and protect sometimes end up being the people that cause us the most hurt and harm. We pray for Miss Betterstein's family. Talk to you soon. Peace.